Open an Indian passport. Look closely at the cover. You don't just see a country's name, you see a contradiction. In English, it says Republic of India, and Hindi, it says Bharat Ganarajya. You probably think these are just translations of each other, like Germany and Deutschland, or Spain and España. They aren't. They are two completely different stories, two different histories, and in a way, two different countries occupying the same space. One name, India, is a foreigner's mistake, a mispronunciation that traveled through three different empires, Persian, Greek, and British. Before it stuck, it's a name given to the land from the outside looking in. It represents the geography, the colonial history, and the modern international identity. It is the brand the world knows, the name on the treaties, and the label on the maps. The other name, Bharat, is a name born from fire. It comes from the oldest war in Indian history, a Game of Thrones-style battle recorded in the Rig Veda, where a single tribe faced an impossible coalition of 10 armies, and won. It is a name that claims ancestry, lineage, and indigenous power. It is the name the land calls itself. And then there's the third name, the ghost name, Hindustan. A name that technically means the exact same thing as India, but carries a completely different soul. A name that rings with poetry, music, and a medieval fusion of cultures, yet was deliberately left out of the Constitution. It is the name of the culture, but not the state. So, who are you? Are you Indian? Are you Bharatiya? Or are you Hindustani? The answer isn't simple. In 1949, the people writing the Constitution actually thought about this. They argued for days, and the compromise they reached, India, that is Bharat, is the only reason this civilization holds together today. This is the origin story of the name. Stick around. To find the first name, we have to go back way before the Greeks. We have to go back to the Sumerians, the very first civilization in Mesopotamia, modern Iraq. 4,500 years ago, they didn't call this land India. They called it Meluhha. In Sumerian inscriptions, Meluhha was a land of exotic riches. It was the place that sent them carnelian beads, ivory, birds, timber, and lapis lazuli. King Sargon of Akkad bragged about ships from Meluhha docking in his harbor. We even found a Sumerian text that mentions a red dog from Meluhha, probably the Indian doll. Meluhha was the trade brand of the Indus Valley civilization. But when that civilization collapsed, the name vanished. The next name came from the river, the Sindhu. In Sanskrit, Sindhu just means river or large body of water, but specifically it referred to the mighty Indus River in the northwest, the cradle of the civilization. For the people living there, the Sindhu was their lifeline, their god, and their border. But for the neighbors, the Persians, it was a linguistic trap. Around 500 BCE, the Persian Emperor Darius conquered the lands around the Sindhu. But there was a problem. The ancient Persian language, Avestan, had a hard time with the S sound. They often swapped S with H. So, the land of Sapta Sindhu, the seven rivers, became Hapta Hindu, and the people living across the river weren't Sindhus, they became Hindus. Hindu wasn't a religion, not originally. It was a geographic term. It just meant the guys who live across the river. If you lived on the east bank of the Indus, you were a Hindu. Didn't matter what god you worshipped. You could be an atheist, and you'd still be a Hindu to the Persians. Then the Persians added their suffix for land, stan, and thus Hindustan was born, the land of the Indus. But the game of telephone wasn't over. The name had to travel further west. When the Greeks arrived, led by Alexander the Great, They tried to say this Persian word Hindu, but the Greeks, they had a problem with the H sound. They dropped it, so Hindu became Indos, and the Roman historians writing in Latin turned Indos into India. That's it. That's the origin of India. It's a Greek mispronunciation of a Persian mispronunciation of a Sanskrit name for a river. It is an exonym, a name given by outsiders. And for 2,000 years, India was a vague, exotic concept to the West. It was the land of spices, of elephants, of mysterious riches. Even the Chinese had their own version. Ancient Chinese travelers like Zhuangzang called it Tianzhu, heavenly bamboo. It was derived from the same Persian Hindu, transliterated into Chinese as Hindak and then Pianzhu. To them, it was the Western heaven, the holy land of the Buddha. When the British arrived, they loved India. It was clean. It was classical. It connected their new empire to Alexander the Great. So they stamped it on the maps. They standardized it. By 1947, India was the brand. It was the name recognized by the UN, by the maps, by the world. It was the name that granted them legitimacy on the global stage. But what did the people call themselves? They didn't call themselves Indians in their prayers. They didn't invoke India in their wedding vows. They used a name that was thousands of years older, a name that smelled of blood and smoke, a name that wasn't about a river, but about a king. Rewind 3,500 years to the time of the Rig Veda, the oldest scripture in the world. We are on the banks of the Ravi River, then called the Parushni. There's a tribe here called the Bharatas. They are a Vedic tribe, fire worshippers, led by a powerful king named Sudas. But they are in trouble. A massive coalition has formed against them. 10 other powerful tribes, the 10 kings, have surrounded them. This is the Dasarajna, the Battle of the 10 Kings. It is the first great war in Indian literature. The odds were impossible, 10 to 1. The coalition included tribes like the Purus, the Yadus, and the Turvashas. The enemy strategy was brutal. They tried to dam the river upstream, to cut off Suda's water supply, or to release it suddenly and drown his army. Sudas was trapped. But he had a secret weapon. His advisor, the great sage Vasishta. Vasishta wasn't just a priest, he was a strategist. According to the Rig Veda, Book 7, Hymn 18, Sudas and the Bharatas fought with such ferocity and with the spiritual backing of Vasishta, who invoked the favor of the gods Indra and Varuna, that the tide turned. The text says Indra helped Sudas cross the river safely, while the enemies drowned in the very waters they tried to weaponize. The Bharatas won. This victory changed everything. The Bharata tribe became the dominant power in the subcontinent. They didn't just conquer, they integrated. They absorbed the defeated tribes, including the powerful Purus, to form the Kuru kingdom, the very dynasty that would later star in the Mahabharata. They created a political center in the Kurukshetra region, and slowly the entire land from the Himalayas to the seas began to be known as the land of the Bharatas, Bharatvarsha. This wasn't just a political name, it became a cultural identity. It meant you belonged to the civilization defined by this specific Vedic lineage. Later, the epic Mahabharata would cement this. The text itself is named after them. Maha, great, Bharata, clan. It tells the story of the descendants of this very tribe. And it gives us another layer, a legendary emperor named Bharata, the son of King Dushyanta and Shakuntala. The legend says this boy was so fearless he would count the teeth of wild lions and tigers as a child. He went on to become the Chakravartin, the universal emperor who conquered the whole subcontinent. So when an Indian says Bharat, they aren't just saying a name, they are invoking a lineage. They are remembering the first great unifier. And before even Bharat, there was another name, Jambu Dvipa, the island of the jambu tree. In ancient cosmology, the world was divided into 7 concentric islands, and the Indian subcontinent was the southern petal of the central island where the giant jambu trees grew. This was the name used by Emperor Asoka in his inscriptions. Fast forward to September 18th, 1949. The British are gone. India is free. And now a room full of lawyers, freedom fighters, and scholars has to decide, what do we put on the nameplate? The debate in the Constituent Assembly was intense. It wasn't just about semantics. It was about the soul of the new nation. On one side, you had the modernists, led implicitly by Nehru and Ambedkar. They wanted India. Why? Because India was an international brand. It was a member of the newly formed United Nations. All the treaties, all the diplomatic agreements were signed in the name of India. Changing it would be a diplomatic nightmare. They wanted a modern, secular state, and India felt neutral. On the other side, you have the traditionalists, people like H.V. Kamat, Seth Govind Das, and Hargobind Pant. They argued that India was a slave name, a remnant of the Greeks and the British, a name given by conquerors. They wanted Bharat, or Bharatvarsha, or even Hind. They wanted to reclaim the ancient soul of the nation. H.V. Kamath proposed an amendment. He wanted Article 1 to read, Bharat, or in the English language, India, shall be a union of states. He cited the example of Ireland, which used its native name, Ire, in its constitution. Seth Govind Das argued that the ancient texts, the Vishnu Purana and the Brahma Purana, all mentioned Bharat, not India. He said, we fought the battle of freedom under the name of Bharat Mata, Mother Bharat, not India Mata. The chairman of the drafting committee, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, was watching the clock. He wanted to get this done. He wasn't against tradition, but he was a pragmatist. He knew the world knew this land as India. He also knew that Bharat carried heavy Brahmanical and Vedic baggage that might alienate some sections of the new, diverse republic. So, he drafted Article 1, and he used a phrase that was a masterstroke of compromise. A phrase that is arguably the most important definition in the country's history. India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. India, that is Bharat. It wasn't India and Bharat. It wasn't India or Bharat. It equated them. It said they are the same thing. Historically, they aren't. One is a river, Indus. One is a tribe, Bharata. But constitutionally, they became identical. It was a fusion of the ancient and the modern. The amendment to change it to Bharat first was defeated in a vote, 51 to 38. The dual name stayed. So today the English version of the Constitution says India. The Hindi version says Bharat. He created a nation with a dual personality, one that looks out at the world and one that looks in at itself. And Hindustan? It was left out of the Constitution entirely. Why? Because by 1947, Hindustan had started to sound too much like Land of the Hindus, which was politically dangerous in a nation that had just been partitioned on religious lines, creating Pakistan. The framers wanted a neutral name. India was neutral. Bharat was ancient. Hindustan was too loaded. But it didn't die. It lives on in the language, Hindustani, in the music, Hindustani classical, and in the hearts of millions who use it as a poetic, cultural name for the homeland, especially in the north. It became the name for the culture, while the other two became names for the state. So why does this matter? Why devote an entire episode to a name? Because these 3 names represent the 3 layers of Indian civilization. Bharat is the root, it is the Vedic core, It is the fire, the tribe, the ancient unity found in the Sanskrit texts. It represents the continuity of 5,000 years. Hindustan is the synthesis. It is the medieval fusion. It is the collision of Persian, Turkic, and Indian cultures that gave us the Taj Mahal, the Urdu language, the sitar, and the food we love. It represents the blending of worlds. India is the modern interface. It is the global face. It is the democracy, the constitution, the software superpower, the cricket team. It represents the future. Most countries just have a name. This civilization has a biography printed on its passport. Every time an Indian citizen travels, they carry the weight of the river, India, and the fire of the tribe, Bharat, in their pocket. It is a reminder that this isn't just a nation-state, it is a civilizational state. So we have the land, part 1, the language, part 2, the food, part 3, the customs, part 4, the myths, part 5, and the name, part 6. But a nation needs something visual to rally around. It needs symbols. Why does the Indian flag have a wheel in the center? Why not a Gandhi spinning wheel as was originally planned? And why is the national emblem a sculpture of 4 lions that was buried underground for 1,000 years? Why did a modern republic choose a Buddhist emperor's pillar as its face? The story of the flag and the emblem is the story of how India went digging into its own forgotten past to find a symbol that could unite a fractured future. That is next time in Part 7, The Origin of the Symbols. Which name do you connect with most? Bharat, India, or Hindustan? Let me know in the comments. And please like and subscribe. We are more than halfway through this journey and the best stories are yet to come. See ya!